It is now 9 o'clock. So I would like to officially start our boardroom bites at 9 for today. Our topic is why corporate gender intelligence should be the next pandemic. And I'm going to ask Colleen to please start her video. There we go. And our speaker for this morning is Colleen Larsen. She is one of the leading voices for the advancement of women in corporate SA. Colleen is the founder of the Gender Mainstreaming Awards. She's the president of the 30% Club in Southern and East Africa, and is also an author of 2 books, which I believe Colleen will be releasing soon. So Colleen, I hand over to you, and I will see everyone back again during the Q&A session.
So thank you so much, Becky, and thank you so much for all of you for joining us here this morning. It was quite interesting listening to where everybody has dialed in from this morning, and it is definitely an opportunity that has presented us, over this period. Things definitely aren't the way they used to be at the beginning of 2020. I was listening to one of the radio announcers yesterday, and he was saying that the new slogan for KFC is now no longer finger licking good, it is elbow licking good. It doesn't have quite the same ring, does it? But on a more serious note, so business engaged, like I'm sure all of you on the call this morning, has been disrupted over this period. I only have to look at one of the things that we've always done is we've been very consistent and deliberate about what we've done in our initiatives. So for those of you our members, you will know that at the beginning of year we come out with a calendar of events and initiatives happening in Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town, Nairobi. Everything is on the same day of the month, the same time. And overnight in March this year, when we had lockdown, we had to look at a whole new way of doing things. So we looked at opportunities, for instance, like Zoom, and then we were told by our corporates we can't use Zoom, and so we started trying MS Teams. For those of you who joined us for an event last week, we had 1,000 people online from all over up into Africa, and we were told that MS Teams is only allows 250 people. So then we had to run around in South Africa looking for another corporate who perhaps had MS Teams live events because it's not freely available in South Africa. So it is the situation we find ourselves in, and it depends on how you are going to look at it, whether you're going to look at the opportunities or you're going to look at the challenges. And disruption does bring about positives or negatives. And I was talking to 2 particular entrepreneurs recently. The one is a Pilates instructor, and the minute lockdown happened in March, she overnight went onto Zoom and has taken all of her classes online. And she now even has people phoning in from the UK. The other entrepreneur runs a yoga studio and phoned me and said, "Cole, what am I going to do? I have to close my studio." I always say to people, especially in times of change, do not panic, because if you panic, your brain doesn't think. So 2 totally similar entrepreneurs, and the one managed to pivot and the other one didn't. So internationally, there's been a huge collaboration in terms of the issues we now find ourselves in terms of COVID-19. And even organizations and structures which previously have not worked together well have now started to collaborate. You know, I always look at some of the myths around gender mainstreaming, and one of the myths is that women do not work together. Well, I can tell you that as a SteerCom, we've got close to 75 people working together, 90% of them women, and we all work exceptionally well. Our Voices of Change last week, we had 9 organizations working together. So especially during this time, we've realized that we cannot do it on our own, and you cannot do gender mainstreaming on your own. It's not that we have not had pandemics of this nature before, The reality, though, is that with this pandemic came the digital technology and automation overnight that we needed to consider. So the lessons we had to learn had to be dealt with extremely quickly and overnight for us to become agile and responsive during this time. This has been an international pandemic, and it's things that all of us have had to deal with overnight. So what can we learn from this? We can learn that when you really want to make a change, you really can, but you have to focus and you have to bring about collaboration. During this time, we have found that only the issues that have been focused on have made that change. The communication is so important where we sit at the moment, because essentially we sometimes visit corporates that have got amazing policies and structures at the top, but then the structures further down have not been communicated with effectively, and they don't know what to do. So when we talk about gender issues, we've been speaking about gender issues and women empowerment for so long now, and yet in the latest World Gender Gap Report, it is still saying that we are going to need 100 years to reach gender parity. I don't know about you, but for me, that is far too long. I want to read for you one of the quotes from Warren Buffett. And he says, if obvious benefits flow from helping the male component of the workforce achieve its potential, why in the world wouldn't you want to include its counterpart? For me, it's just as well to replace, if we replace that word male with female, and we read it like this: if obvious benefits flow from helping the female component of the workforce achieve its potential, why in the world wouldn't you want to include its counterpart? For me, it's not about women empowerment or women's issues, and it's the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. It really is about bringing men and women together to work together on these issues. It's equally important to understand that it's about the masculine and feminine traits. For us, we don't believe that to do something right or to do something in the right manner is a male or a female trait. We do acknowledge, if you look at the way COVID-19 has been addressed, we do acknowledge and celebrate the women that have taken the right steps. However, in business, it really is about how do we bring the masculine and feminine traits together, and how do we develop the competencies that we need to take business forward. The funny thing about competency is sometimes women have to learn the masculine traits and men have to learn more feminine traits. And then it is about business using the skills at hand to actually drive the conversation forward. We have developed what we believe is corporate gender intelligence. And I want to read to you what we mean by corporate gender intelligence. It is the aptitude of an organization to acknowledge the business case for gender mainstreaming and the ability to acquire and apply the necessary knowledge, skills, and processes to harness such qualities with a balance of masculine and feminine perspectives in doing business, and the ability to apply this. It's about using 100% of the talent. So many articles and so much work has been written on what we have to do and how we have to do it. So that is not a challenge to us at all. However, I think where we've actually fallen short is where we as business acknowledge, accept, and understand why we do things. So it really is about bringing women and men together to move the conversation forward. So what is this new normal that we've been talking about? And, you know, we've all known what we need to do, but I don't think there's anything normal about the situation we find ourselves in. For me and for our organization, at the moment, we are in constant change. Leaders are being tested far beyond from where they were tested before as to how they navigate these rocky waters. Something, though, that I think is different from the way that we've been tested is the authenticity of the leaders that are now faced with these issues. There's this wave of conscious leaders that are being developed. And if you ask me what is a conscious leader, it's a way, it's a feeling, it's a way of being. It's that understanding that there is far more to the issues at hand than you yourself. It's about that greater good. Business Engage are in the top 3 in the Conscious Companies Awards next week, Wednesday. And in my interview, I was asked what it means to be a conscious leader. And I feel it's about that knowing that you know that you know that you're in the right place at the right time for the right purpose. We have spoken so long about diversity and inclusion, and it is the diversity that makes the business sense. It's not about women empowerment or women's issues, it's about the diversity that makes the business sense. However, if we forget about the fact that people need to feel that they belong, then we are not having the impact on the ground that we are looking for. So much has been said in the media lately about the negative aspects of COVID-19. Many of our corporates are talking about the fact that they're now dealing with mental and health issues, the sexual harassment, the mental and health issues brought about by lack of income, social distancing, the additional roles that we are now running as women. However, taking cognizance of that, we can't sweep it under the table. It's a definite result of the COVID-19 that we now found ourselves in. But not looking at the opportunities that present themselves will then possibly result in us overlooking the opportunities for women that we ordinarily wouldn't have had. So I believe we are going to look at a way of getting into more of a hybrid model, and a hybrid model of doing things, something the way we used to do, but other things we are going to have to change to have the results that we are now looking for. It is a given. We are in a time of uncertainty, and how we address things will be different for each and every single one of them. The impact itself will be felt on organizations and individuals as a whole. So we need to look at the differences between the opportunities and the challenges. You know, it's only when we look at the opportunities will it give us that opportunity to overcome some of the challenges that we are going to face. But as I said, it's going to affect the organizations and individuals as a whole. Who would have ever thought that we would find a situation where corporates would be talking about not having 100% of their employees in the office for at least the next year? Who would have thought that we would not have travel, both domestic and international? Who would have thought that flexible working would become a reality for all within an organization? So corporates are looking at reworking their value proposition. Even before COVID-19, we had seen some real fantastic things that companies were looking at. If you look at where we started, when we first started, individuals were saying, oh, things aren't happening, corporates haven't bought into it, And yet, the more we spoke to corporates, the more we heard about how much has been done and what has been done to impact women in business. So from an organization perspective, if you look at the JSE, they on the 1st of January 2017 released new listing requirements for all of the companies listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Out of 350 companies that we now analyze on an annual basis in our status of gender on JSE listed companies, 90% of corporates are now reporting on gender. So that means only 10%. Out of those JSE listed companies, 135 positions have been earmarked for women on listed boards in the next 3 to 5 years. So one of the things we've done is looking forward is to start a board masterclass series in conjunction with IOD to build the pipeline of women coming up the ranks so that we don't have the result of the golden skirts and things that we often speak about. So it's about challenging the conversation as to how we do things. Companies have also had to go onto Zoom and MS Teams to become a lot more efficient and effective, which has meant that a lot of women now have the opportunity to work from home. And as I said, so if you have your daughter or son wanting to come speak to you in the middle of a meeting, is that really such a bad thing? Is it really such a bad thing that we as families get back to the place where we are our families? So from individuals, one of our non-executive directors, Mama Keti Ramati, she speaks about disrupting yourself. And I think that is so special, that you don't have to always be like everybody thinks you should be. You can disrupt yourself, you can stretch yourself, you can grow to an opportunity where you can climb that ladder. In the UK, on the Lord Davies report, you know, the age-old myth that women aren't available, well, they've managed to reach their targets that they set in the UK by using other candidates, like, for instance, academia and non-profit women in non-profit organizations, rather than the usual suspects. So there are opportunities, you just have to look for them. And it's when you stretch yourself and when you reach out that you're able to learn and grow. As I said, flexible working, now something that was possibly one of the most detrimental things to a woman's career is now something for everybody. So a woman can use that opportunity without being unfairly judged. I think in terms of that, though, as women, we need to be careful that we look at integrating work and our lives, because essentially, because you are in contact, and that people know that you're in contact 24 hours a day on Zoom or MS Teams, it could become a thing where your work overtakes you. Men have been talking about how fantastic it's been over this time to spend time with their family. From my perspective, I mean, if you had spoken to me about online shopping a couple of months ago, I would have said, you're mad, I would not do that. And yet, now for my grocery shopping, I actually book online and it's delivered to my door. It hasn't only given me that opportunity to do things a little bit differently and to take on other things which I ordinarily wouldn't have done because of a lack of time, but it's also given an entrepreneur an opportunity to form her business and to have an income on a monthly basis. We could have foretold these changes. We could have actually plotted that course going forward, but we didn't. And so now we have to deal with this overnight having to change things, which is okay, because working together we will get there. A lot of people want to have gender mainstreaming overnight, and we've coined the word a keyvolution. I've coined the word a keyvolution. I strongly don't believe in revolutions, because revolutions happen overnight, they're quick, and you can see an immediate change. However, revolutions are not sustainable. We also don't want to have an evolution, because that is, I mean, if we look, as I said, at the World Gender Gap Report, 100 years, that to me is an absolute evolution. So we want a quick evolution. And I would think with COVID-19 and with the technology that we have brought in over this stage, maybe that will happen even quicker than we actually envisaged in the first place. So the pendulum can swing either way. It can swing forward based on our ability to look forward and to harness all of the opportunities that we find ourselves, or it could swing backwards. And from going back to where the gains that we've had to date will become meaningless. And is that what we really want? So, as I said, definitely taking into account all of the issues we need to deal with, but not forgetting those opportunities. It's about being proactive and not reactive. And I know from my perspective, I would want to look proactively to ensure positive results. Thank you. And just looking, see, I think working from, just looking at the questions and answers, I think working from home is only accepted now because of the pandemic, and men can also work from home. It has always been frowned upon by companies when women with small babies requested to work from home. Deboko, I totally understand where you're coming from, and it is definitely something that we have to look at from where we come from as in the past. I think though what we need to do is acknowledge the past, look at what was the issue before, and then see how we go forward in terms of the new opportunities that are presented themselves. You know, I always say to women, if you constantly look back to what we never had and what we always didn't have, then we perhaps won't be able to move forward. And so I hear you, I understand that, but let's try and look forward, and let's try and harness the opportunities that we have today.
Thanks, Colleen. Just a reminder for our attendees, if you would like to ask your question live, you can raise your hand, and I'll enable the talk functionality so that you can speak. Otherwise, please do put your questions in the Q&A box as well, so that Colleen can answer any of your questions on the topic.
Bikeshni Pakamili raised her hand.
I see it's gone now. I see there's something from David.
Pakamili's raised her hand again.
Here we go. No, it's gone. In the meantime, maybe Colleen, you know, a question from me, you know, is gender mainstreaming still high enough on the overall SA business agenda?
I think it definitely is. Look, I mean, as I said, we've still got a long way to go. However, if I look at where, you know, even in terms of the research that we do on an annual basis and the movements in terms of that, in terms of the JSE, it did take the JSE that nudge to make sure that things happened. But, you know, it's happened, and we are now on a journey in the right direction. Our Gender Mainstreaming Awards tells the stories about a number of corporates that are doing great things. And so I just think where we've lost out in the past is all the corporates have been doing something, but there've been these silos. And so gender has looked like a small little opportunity that some people were dealing with. But when you put everything together, you can see the absolute opportunity of what corporates are doing. So yeah, as I said, long way to go, but we're on a journey, and we're going to get there.
Thanks, Colleen. Right, there's quite a few questions that have come through, but I'm going to allow Pakamela to please, I see you're already unmuted, so you can ask your question.
I hear you say that there are quite a lot, women tend to, think work together. But, I generally hear quite a lot of complaints of that women don't tend to work together. And as far as actually where women are doing well and sitting on quite a few boards, they don't tend to pull up other women to join them in those boards, and that is why you tend to see it's quite male dominated. And you say women do work together. Is it something that's it's now changing, and is it because of the current situation we find ourselves in?
Like Amelia, no, it's always. I mean, it depends on what you want to focus on. I think it's like saying, in terms of men, men are always out to get women down. And I've got to say, I don't know of any man that sits in the morning and says, let's see how we get women down today. So what people are actually doing is they are taking maybe one or two or three instances and actually making this collective statement. I've worked with people in the past that have been phenomenal support. And our organization is a testament to that. I mean, we've got women's organizations. If you look at, we work together with women in IT, women in mining, we've previously worked with women in housing. We've got African women chartered accountants working together. We've got all of these organizations, Women Property Network, and we are all collaborating and working together. So I actually think it's always been like that, but it depends on what you want to look at. Yes, there are some women that are these queen bees that sit at the top and want to push everybody else down. At the same time, there are a number of men that don't want women there, and then we've got the examples of phenomenal women at the top that are pulling others up. I mean, if you look at the JSC, for instance, and that is definitely not a case of women being kept down. And so if you look at that, and if you look at those examples of more looking at the positives rather than negatives, it's totally up to individuals where they want to focus. If you want to focus on the negative, you're going to hide the negative. But if you want to focus on the positive and where change is happening, you will find umpteen dozen of those results happening in South Africa. And it is about working together, and it depends on what your outlook is. So no, it hasn't just happened now. I've been on this journey. Business Engage was established in 2005. I've been on this journey for 15 years, and I've found the same throughout my career. Okay, David, you say diversity in workplace is so critical, and in South Africa this has always been given lip service. What are practical measures, not tick boxes, outcome-based, that can be applied in South Africa? David, absolutely agree with you in terms of that, and I think one of the things that we need to, and as I said in my talk, it's about understanding why. Most importantly, it's about understanding why we do it. So a lot of people do diversity and inclusion because that's what everybody says to you have to do, but you don't unnecessarily understand the why. So the first practical thing is to understand why you do these initiatives. What is the impact on the ground? And as leaders, we've got to listen and we've got to be judged in terms of those outcomes. And that for me is critical. Those two are absolutely critical. We've got to make sure that people on the ground feel that they belong and that whatever we said we're going to do has meaning rather than paying lip service. What is the process of incorporating corporate gender intelligence in the company? Well, first of all, I don't think you can, that's Dumisani. So Dumisani, first of all, in terms of incorporating corporate gender intelligence, I don't think you can actually start on your own. On the front of the Business Engage website, there is an ebook which you are all free to download. And it's got 106 best practices that you can incorporate into your business to start on the journey. However, I think instead of doing it on your own, rather collaborate with others that have started. There are a number of organizations, not only Business Engage, that brings together corporates that are on this journey. And it's always best to look at best practice and what others are doing that are achieving. So I would recommend go and have a look at the ebook and then get hold of us. We will welcome, willingly take you through some of the other things that other corporates are doing and then support you internally on how you can achieve that. Hi, Colleen. How can you assist women who are trying to find their feet? Do you have opportunities for mentoring and coaching? We've got for us it is about, we run various initiatives, and it's not only about mentoring and coaching. So we do have opportunity where as a member, we would refer you to a mentor if that's what you're looking at, but we have monthly events which reach all the way up into Africa. So even if you are in Durban, Cape Town, Nairobi, Tanzania, Ethiopia, which we found Nigeria, you're more than welcome to get involved with what we are doing. Every single month we've got a guest speaker opportunity, and then what we have facilitated talks on various topics. So I recommend get involved, and then if you do need a mentor, we can refer you in terms of that. But you cannot do it on your own. And the only way we say is that if you don't come and get involved, we can't support you on that. So please do get hold of us and get involved. Palmy, do you think we could be doing more as parents on the topic of gender equality in terms of how we raise our children from young? Absolutely, Palmy. It starts from when you're kids, it's this age-old saying of young girls dressing pink and young boys dressing blue. And Malcolm always tells the story of where previously blue was actually the stronger, the feminine color, because it was seen as the stronger color. And then just somewhere along the line, blue became for boys and pink became from girls, for girls. And so, I think it's also the way we train up our individuals. There's that Dove advert that talks about how do you run like a girl, how do you, how do you play football like a girl, how do you, and yes, we have got our things that we can do and like a girl, but does it have to be like a girl? Does it have to be in every single thing? I mean, I know of many young guys, even myself. I used to play marbles when I was a young child, and then I was a little bit of a tomboy. But is there something so wrong with that? Is there something so wrong with allowing kids to be kids rather than what we have, what we want them to be? So absolutely, starting from young and then challenging the conversations as we grow up, and making sure that we streamline both young boys and young girls in the direction that they want to go, not in the direction that we feel they should go. Taborgo, Colleen, when you mentioned the board masterclass series with IODSA, do you mean a certification program? No, Taborgo, I don't mention that at all. Our program is not an accredited program, and it's not that if you come and do our program that you would gain exactly what you get in with the Institute of Directors. Wanting to become a director, I would recommend that you absolutely do the IODSA programs. Ours is very, very different. Ours is more practical. It's spread over a year. It's 30 sessions with corporates, and it does not give you the certification. It does, however, give you a lot of practical application on the ground from corporates that are working in this space. So if you want to get more information, let me know on that. But absolutely don't ignore the Institute of Directors program with the certification, because you will need that as a director going forward. Itaba, any website information resources on gender mainstreaming correlated to organizations trends, so to say? Like if one needs to explore those organizations that are really gender sensitive and relate their progress to success of that organization. Ditaba, we are busy as Business Engage runs the 30% club. which is an international campaign of chairmen and CEOs who commit to gender mainstreaming because they believe it makes business sense. And as the 30% club, that we are now the custodians in Southern Africa and East Africa, but there's a global organization. And part of that, we are looking at coordinating all of the content, because there are just so many websites and so many things that you have to look at that which is not coordinated at this stage. We've also got some of our own research, so happy to share what we've got, and then for you to be kept informed as we go forward in terms of the correlation of the information. The prevalence of GBV seems to overshadow gender mainstreaming. How do we maintain a proper balance between the two? Our observation is the organization tends to pay lip service to gender mainstreaming. I think absolutely there has to be a focus on GBV, and especially at this time when we know the extent of it during this time. My sense is that there are a number of organizations that are more advocates rather than doing things, initiatives to make the change. So I think it is a thing of looking at, they are two totally separate issues. You've got the gender-based violence and you've got gender mainstreaming. And I don't think you can look at the two. They are two really major topics to look at. So they do have to be addressed separately. Our expertise is not on addressing gender-based violence. Our expertise is on the gender mainstreaming side. And so for us, it is about developing initiatives for every single level of the agenda to make sure that mainstreaming does work from bottom to top. So I don't think you can combine the two topics. How can organizations support and develop its female employees for future opportunities to equalize the playing field? Sherma, I think it's a two-pronged approach in terms of this. It's number one, the organizations developing programs that fit some of the opportunities that are going to become available for them. Also understanding that the opportunity is bigger than that organization. And I know of a number of organizations that will develop women with the knowledge that they will then go out into the working environment, and perhaps they will lose that skill. However, it's also up to the individual women to rise to the challenge. And so when there are those opportunities, it's up to the women to raise their hands and say, pick me, and to step into those roles. So it's not just about we always talk about government has to do this and government's got to do that, but what are we doing? And it's the same with business. Business has to do their part, but we have to play our part as well. And, we've spoken so many times about building confidence, but the confidence without the competency is absolutely meaningless. So while we build that confidence, we've got to be confidently confident and competent in what we are doing. So it takes both aspects. Ophelia, many corporate gender diversity programs are driven by compliance requirements and not necessarily a recognition of the importance and benefits of gender mainstreaming. Absolutely, Ophelia, and that's why I said in my talk that we have not necessarily understood, accepted that there is a business case and know why we are doing things on the ground. So we pay lip service to it because internationally we've been told that there's a business case, but we haven't internalized that message. So I really think it's about corporates internalizing the message. It's about that group of conscious leaders that we spoke about, moving this conversation forward and understanding that there's an impact on the ground that we are looking for.
I think, Colleen, are you still there?
Sorry?
There we go. No, I thought you froze for a second.
Oh, sorry. Okay, we there?
Yes, we're there. Our next question was from Palmy. What advice do you have for women who want to rise through the ranks?
Yeah, so I was busy saying get connected, Palmy. You cannot do it on your own. Also, when you network with others, you find out the opportunities. So you definitely have to. As women, we've always spoken about, well, we cannot go and network and we cannot participate and we cannot because we've got a whole lot of other issues. Well, that's the only way you are going to rise through the ranks, is getting to know the people, and then also finding, especially when you are looking to get into senior leadership, is to get a sponsor, to find a sponsor that will sponsor you up the ranks, especially if you're looking to get onto a board. Getting onto a board where nobody knows who you are, or getting into senior leadership when nobody knows you, nobody's going to trust you to put you forward for that position. So over a couple of years, people will develop the trust in you and then start recommending you for positions. And then it's up to you to put up your hand and put yourself forward. It's not going to happen overnight. You might have umpteen dozen rejections, but keep on it and keep focused and keep deliberate and keep intentional, and you will get there. Lalita, Colleen, what are your thoughts about NED vacancies that are advertised? Skills required are stated in the advert. Should gender preference also be in the advert? No, Lalita, I don't think it's about gender, male or female. I really think it is about men and women working together. I think that's where we've gone wrong in the past, is we've made it a women's issue, not a business issue. And also with regards to achieving an opportunity with a non-executive director position that has just been advertised and nobody knows you, I don't think you will ever succeed in terms of that. So you have to follow through all of the opportunities to get connected, to upskill yourself, to get to know the right people, to get to know the opportunities that are becoming available. How can you benefit the organization? How can you do your research on the organization and how that can benefit you? So it's a lot more than just gender. I wouldn't make it a women's issue, because then you'll have the age-old thing of, oh, well, she was only appointed because she's a woman. And so it goes back to competency. It doesn't go back to just putting a woman into a position because she's a woman. Lindsay, hi Colleen, give the new normal of the next few years of COVID reality as you've outlined in your presentation, including much more work from home. How do you see barriers to gender mainstreaming changing over the next few years? And how do you think we should anticipate and prepare to address these? Well, Lindsay, as I said, I mean, who would have thought that, if you look at travel, we've heard many stories about the woman was overlooked because the companies thought she would rather want to stay at home rather than being with the kids. And now with the travel being reduced, I mean, it gives the woman an opportunity to say, well, I would have traveled anyway. However, because I don't have to travel, I can now reach out for those positions and not be unfavorably looked at. When it comes to working from home, you get to a point where you can do things ordinarily and be there to overlook things that previously you felt guilty about because you weren't able to do them because you were at work all the time. So I think going forward, we're going to have to look at what are the things that we want to see. And, I always say to women, we need to have a look at the real issues we are dealing with. So I was in Malawi for an African Union summit. And one of the things we always hear is about women can't go network because they've got to go and look after their kids and they've got to go and do everything like that. And so I said to the women, I said, I know there are issues. However, have you ever gone home? And this was after 2 hours worth of moaning and groaning about these things. And I said to them, I said, have you ever gone home to your husband and said to your husband or your partner, I'm going to a networking event tonight. This is what it means for my career. We would love it if the kids would love it if you take them to McDonald's for the night. And they said, oh, we wouldn't do that. And I said, why? They said, because he'd say no. I said, how do you know you haven't even asked? And so that's what we have to do, is every day challenge the old paradigms. We are moving into a new way of doing things. And I also say then, when you have allowed the men to actually take over some of the roles, don't force them to do it the way you wanted them to do it. I was out at a meeting one night, and Malcolm took the kids to McDonald's. And as I walked in, there was Brad, the small little, when he was younger, and he was on the outside of the jungle gym. And I screamed, Brad, get down from there. He was perfectly okay until Mom walked in, and luckily Jade was down below and she broke his fall, and he only broke his arm. So we have to be very careful that we don't disrupt the way things are going to be done in the future. But it's up to us to use those opportunities and to press for the change that we've been looking for. But we cannot do it as women. We have to bring the men along. What is the single most important element to achieve 30% in SA organizations? Christelle, I think the single most important thing is to know why we are doing it. If we don't know why we are doing it, and we get on this journey with everybody as a collective, knowing why we are working in this direction, we could very well get to an opportunity where we get onto a treadmill. So one year you've got 30%, and then the next year you've got 28%, and then the next year you've got 26%, and then it goes up again. So we really need to get to this understanding and acknowledging that it does make business sense. It's not about a quota. If you look at the 30% club, the name is not, it's not a target we are working towards. A number of people say to us, why didn't you call it the 50% club? Or why don't you call it the 80% club? Or why don't you make it 100% women? And we say to them, it's not a target. The only thing the 30% is it's known internationally at the level at which you get the tipping point. So it's the, excuse me, it's the tipping point of doing things the right way. And so once we get to that tipping point, then we can do a lot more and a lot quicker. So that's all the 30% means. And it's not a target we're working towards, but we have to understand why for it to be sustainable change. Beiruz, what are your thoughts on women keeping the circle small and not giving other women opportunity for growth? Beiruz, I think I've already answered that question in that you get some groups that are small and some groups that are, it's like putting all the women into one basket and all the men into one basket just because of a few people that aren't doing things the way we would want them done. So for me, that is not what I have found, and I must say a number of the women that associate with the organization have not felt that they've been kept down in any shape or form by other women. Melose Ramaru, I'm right to say that gender discussion should be broadened to go beyond women and include other social groups, especially the youth and other social groups, e.g. albinos in Malawi. So Melose, I think, you know, it really is about, in terms of our gender discussion, we don't believe in creating additional silos in terms of the conversation we are having. So for us, it is about women. We actually don't have the expertise in terms of the other elements. What happens is we believe in diversity. We believe that it's the diversity that makes the business sense. However, a couple of years ago when we first started, I was sitting in front of my computer one day and I knew we had to do something, but I didn't know what we had to do because it was just so, we were involved in so much. We were involved in gender-based violence, we were involved in sexual harassment, we were involved in HIV, AIDS, breast cancer, you name it. And my brain was totally puzzled. And it was at that time that we decided to focus on what we know, and that is that gender mainstreaming is our core focus. So when it gets into things like social preference and all of those things, we collaborate with other organizations, but we stick to our knitting in terms of it's women and men working together to ensure that gender mainstreaming is a reality in South Africa. So we wouldn't want to touch on any of those because it's not our area of expertise.
Colleen, I see Paco's got his hand up for a while. Shall I allow him to ask
Please,
his
sorry,
question?
I couldn't see that hand up.
That's
Yeah.
not a problem.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I agree with you that this is a collaborative issue. And now I want to point out that the issues that hold us back in that area is the culture. There are always feelings that even my wife would say, because you are a man, please do this and all that. And then another thing is that some people do numbers, quantitative compliance, where they want to consider women, but at the expense of their abuse sometimes. So what do you think about those issues? And again, the last thing is that women don't support one another in most cases. I've realized here in Botswana, in politics, women don't support other women. You'll find that even in committees elsewhere, you'll find that there are so many women here, and then positions are given to men. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a reality that we are faced with. Our success in South Africa has been that we've, as an organization, have challenged the conversations. You know, we can, if we want to, we can pull out so many examples of things that have not been done right. But the thing is, we have to challenge the conversations, take the journey going forward, and that's exactly why I said we can't look backwards. We can't always look backwards and not look at those opportunities to go forwards, because then we will have the age-old story of, yeah, well, men always do this and women always do that, and you know, because of our culture, we can't do it. And there are so many issues, but we need to get to the real issues that are not taking us forward. Is it an issue that we cannot overcome? And then as a collective, we need to get together and say, that issue, because we have got this desire to take the conversation forward, how are we going to tackle that issue? Often, though, we get caught up in conversations that are just hearsay, and just because that is the way things have always been, according to whoever speaks loudest, is what we believe. And so we really have to challenge that conversation going forward. We have to challenge women in terms of what they need to do to take the conversation forward. We need to challenge men in terms of them coming to the party as well, and women not making it a women's issue, and men not being scared to have those conversations either. You know, I always say to women, if we're going to say to have conversations all the time about male bashing and what men don't do and that type of thing, we mustn't be surprised if men don't want to come to the table in terms of that. So we really have to develop a new conversation going forward, and we have to be particular about what we want to say and where we want to get to. And as we're on that journey, if there's a real issue that comes up, as a collective of leaders knowing and people gravitating to that conversation, if we really believe in belonging on the ground, if it's really what we want to achieve, we will be able to achieve it. And some are going to have to give and some are going to have to change, and in terms of the way we've always seen things, but then it's going to be a give and take, but it's going to be a collective conversation taking us forward. So the more we talk about the issues, the more we aren't actually talking about where we want to go to and where we see us taking the conversation.
Thank you, Colleen. I think that was a very interesting conversation. And like you said, I think we need to just keep the conversations going and having this conversation in a nice open manner and listening to all sides as well and perspectives. Colleen, There's not much questions that are left, and I think you've answered everyone that actually asked a question. So thank you very much for today's session. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I can see from the comments that it was an inspiring conversation from Colleen. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for coming in and keeping us in your Wednesday mornings time slot. And I will look forward to seeing everyone again next week, same time. Colleen's details are on this last slide. You will get all of the presentations via email, and as well as a link to the recording of today's webinar as well during the later course of this week. So look out for that. And if you want to get in touch with Colleen, you can do so via her contact details here. Colleen, thank you very much. Any last parting words from you?
No, just to say thank you to you, Vicky and Rusani and Palmi, for this opportunity, and thank you to all that joined today. Yeah, I wish I could have had a face-to-face conversation, and people that know me know that I love my coffee, so we're going to have to do some virtual coffees, but thank you so much for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.